I hate found footage movies. It usually takes forever for something to happen. And when it finally does, there's always a reason why they're recording instead of just, leaving and staying alive.
Come join the party. Subscribe to the Geek Legion of Doom.
I hate found footage. I don't, but that's the name of this movie. And this is written, directed and starring Michael Rock. I say starring, he is one of the puppets. Puppeting one of the puppets. Puppets? What are you talking about? Yes, this is a found footage horror comedy with two puppets as our main protagonists who live in a world of regular old humans. So this is a clearly satirical take on the found footage as a genre. And it focuses on our two protagonists, who are these two puppets, and they go and want to make a found footage movie. So they head off into the woods, where pretty much all found footage movies take place, to try and film a movie with kind of no budget and no script. But when they're out there, they end up kind of seeing a murder take place with these kind of like cultists type, and they inevitably film it and come under threat from this kind of gang of killers. On the way they rescue two women who are humans, not puppets, and what will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's talk about it. Now, this is a difficult movie to really make, I would say, because part of the conceit with found footage is it's a kind of format that lends itself to a realistic believability immersion. So you know that it's not real footage, but it's filmed in a way where it seems like you are watching events unfold for reals. And although there have been a couple of found footage comedy movies, it is a difficult one to pull off. I think the only one I would say maybe that has successfully done this is Deadstream. Because, it's difficult to maintain comedy without breaking the immersion, obviously, that it's clearly not a real footage. Now this one doesn't worry about that, clearly, because we have puppets as our kind of protagonists. So think like Muppets, or this kind of the Smile Time from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's that kind of thing. So it's not too worried about having a realistic story or anything like that. But the part of the joke here, and what makes this fun, is that you have this sort of otherwise sort of realistic found footage movie in some respects. In regards to it, it pretty much plays very much like a typical found footage movie, albeit that we have our two central protagonists as puppets, and people aren't questioning why there's puppets there. They're just treating them like as is, if that makes sense. So it's nothing out of the ordinary for this kind of universe, if that makes sense. So the joke is that the rest of the characters are acting just kind of normally. I mean, there's a little bit of kind of goofy acting, which I'm not sure of is intentional or not, but they're not kind of drawing attention. Why is there puppets here? No, they're just like treated as regular kind of characters, which kind of makes it so sort of absurd that you can kind of enjoy the kind of the silliness to a large degree. But the main kind of point with this movie, the kind of the way that it's poking holes at the found footage genre. Looking at different tropes and kind of commenting on it, and sort of basically having a laugh at the format's expense, if that makes sense. So I'm sure it's done with love, but yeah, it's a lot of sort of like looking at the different cliches and tropes that we see in found footage movies, and sort of making jokes about it, commenting on it, and then trying to have an actual kind of story itself within that both sort of is doing the same type of tropes that we see also in found footage movies, but at the same time commenting on those tropes. So it's sort of certainly a unique movie in some ways. Never have I seen a found footage movie, or rarely have I seen a found footage movie that is so blatantly just like surreal and absurd. So there's certainly some fun to be had with it, I would suggest, and it is unique to a large degree. There's been one or two other kind of spoofy type found footage movies, but not many. So yeah, it stands out as a sort of memorable movie in many ways because it's so sort of strange, and you know, it has this sort of level of like a story which you have seen in sort of found footage movies, but with such absurd characters. But even then, I could have still quite liked our puppet characters, these sort of two sort of you know, friends who kind of are bickering and stuff like that. They are still kind of end up being kind of somewhat fun characters, like you still kind of quite enjoy. One who's kind of getting dragged along, the other one's like super enthusiastic about kind of having to make this found footage movie and stuff like this. And yeah, so there's some enjoyment to be had. Clearly, not to be taken seriously. What doesn't work, this is a movie that I think the concept would have been perfect for a short. As a feature, I mean, it's not a long film, it only lasts about an hour, but it's a kind of one joke movie in some respects, and I think because of the fact that it's not a movie that you do take seriously in any respect, and the found footage genre is generally a movie where the conceit is that you buy into the premise, you're never that invested or interested in regards to the initial sort of surprise about having these puppets as your kind of protagonists, but then the plot carries on, and you're thinking, you know, I'm not really as interested now as, you know, you were within the kind of the first few minutes of the movie, because it's just that sort of same joke kind of played throughout the entire film. So I think had this been like a short in a part of an anthology or something like that, I think it would have had far more impact, but the joke is not sustainable, in my opinion, for an entire movie, and as such it ends up, and because it's not a movie that is engaging in regards to because of it taking shots at the format, you just don't really pay attention to it as in a genuine kind of found footage way. I also have mentioned the sort of our human characters have this sort of, and I can't tell if it's like just not particularly good acting or if they're sort of playing to somewhat of a non-serious mark, because it's not quite, they don't quite commit into having like, if it is they're playing this on purpose, they're not fully like committing to comedy bits or over the top characters. They're serious enough where you're thinking, are they sort of doing a bit, or are they just not particularly strong actors? I actually think it would have been more funny had it been so dead straight and serious and dramatic, you know, and everyone else is so like absolutely kind of dramatic style acting, and you juxtapose that with the two puppets, it would have been more amusing. But here they don't quite commit to doing that fully, because the acting is sort of somewhat sort of tongue-in-cheek, but it's not so tongue-in-cheek that it's kind of clearly obvious that it's like, this is just like a joke movie. It almost fits. They don't kind of go one way or the other. So it comes across, and it might just be not good acting, but it sort of comes across like people aren't quite sure of the tone, or you know, they're kind of doing a little bit of a comedy bit, but not fully committing. So again, that doesn't quite hit the mark for me. So it's an interesting oddity. I kind of like the originality and the sort of the surreal nature to this movie, and it's certainly amusing. But it's not like a film that's going to be gripping in any type of other sense, to be honest with you, other than just a little bit of a sort of distraction, really. Probably be worth a watch. I don't know if people would want to watch the whole thing. I think once you've had your fun of the joke, you can kind of turn it off, and you know, you've not really missed all that much. But I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I give it props for some of the kind of the funny things that it's pointing out about the found footage genre, and you know, its kind of uniqueness in the genre. So it's a 5 out of 10.
Damn it. No, I do not look like Leo from Geek Legion of Doom, people.